passport drums.
Travel Thursday, Travel Thursday. Things to do before your round the world trip.
Let's go! They delivered it? So sneaky. Right at the front door. It's like 10 feet away. How do we not know? There it is. So we've been getting ready for this 1 year around the world trip adventure-thon that we've been really excited about for a really long time. There's been a lot of things that you just gotta do to get ready for a trip like this, so we figured we'd make a big old list and share it with you guys of everything that you need to do before you leave for your long-term trip. Sabbatical, around the world, whatever it is. Everything you gotta do. And we got a brand new lens for the camera today, and it's in here. So we're gonna give that a try. Let us know if you think it's better. I'm hoping it will be. We're gonna break up this video into a couple of sections. And it's gonna be based on how far out from the trip you actually are. So it's things to do 3 months before, 2 months before you leave on your trip, 1 month before you leave on your trip, and then just the last couple of days before you actually leave on this big around the world trip, sabbatical thing, whatever you're doing. There it is. It's a little 11 to 22 millimeter. We wanted something a little wider for the camera. We kind of felt like the camera, you had to hold it so far away when you're using it, and it meant that when you were using the camera, you were having to hold it really far out and lean back, and it wasn't working so good. So we got this more wide angle lens than the one that's on there right now. That one's 15 to 45. It's got a lot more zoom, but I think from what I read, the optical stabilization is a lot better on this. So we are gonna give it a try. So for any of you wondering how we afford to take a around the world trip or a long trip like what we're doing, a large portion of it is savings from credit cards, from credit card churning specifically. And this is kind of signing up for credit card offers on the internet that then get you a bunch of, say, United Airlines miles or American Airlines miles, and then you spend those points to then fly around the world for free. If any of you are interested in that, we just recently made a Skillshare course, and the link for it's down below if you're interested. Plus, it comes with 1 month free of Skillshare, so not only can you learn stuff from our course, but from everything else on the platform. I think it's pretty cool. You should go check it out. Okay, let's real quick change out this lens here to the new one. Pretty excited. As you can see, it's already cropping off my head. I don't know if you guys have noticed, but especially whenever Lisa's filming, the top 1/4 of my head, as in my hair, is basically always cropped off all the time. So I'm hoping with this new lens that, this is the face she's giving me right now. It's true though. It's true. She always cuts my head off when she's filming. It's rough. Now she just wants to do that in real life. So I'm hoping with this new lens that we'll have a little bit different perspective, and you might actually see my hair sometimes. Not that my hair is all that great, but you know, it'd just be nice. So let's trade this. There we go. Sitting the exact same distance away. I like the look of this thing. As Lisa just pointed out, it is a little bit bigger than this lens, but I think it's because the glass at the front is a little bit bigger, which lets you get that sort of nice bokeh viewpoint angle thing that we've been trying to get. I think it looks good.
Pretty good.
Pretty good. Pretty good. Resounding review. Resounding review. Ooh, and the zoom's so smooth. Ooh. All right, onto the video.
The first thing that you should do is honestly check your passports. Make sure that your passports are up to date and they're not about to expire before your big round the world trip. You'll need to make sure that your passport is valid at least 6 months past your trip. A lot of countries require this, so make sure that your dates all line up. On top of that, you want to make sure that you have enough pages in your passport, especially if you're going to multiple countries. Since processing times can take a lot longer than expected, it's never too late to start looking at this earlier.
Okay, so your next step is going to be to book your initial flights. Now, if you're doing an international trip, which if it's a long-term trip, it'll probably involve some sort of international thing happening, you're going to want to book that flight somewhere between 2 and 9 months before you depart. And I made an entire video previously about how it's a much better deal to just book one-way flights than it is to book round-trip flights. Now, another thing to think about is booking some throwaway flights. And this is because whenever you go into a new country, most of the time, they're going to require you to have some proof of exit, as in some proof that you have a flight that's going to be leaving their country and going somewhere else. That way you don't just stay there forever. A way that I like to do this is called a throwaway flight. So I'll just book the cheapest flight I can possibly find from this country to outside of that country. So in examples, if I'm going to Europe on a Schengen visa, I'm going to book a flight for the end of that trip for maybe $30 or something on Ryanair that just shows that I'm leaving this EU Schengen zone and going somewhere else. And then no matter what happens, I might use that flight, I might not, but still it will allow me to get into the area, go wherever I want, and then I still have all of this freedom to be able to actually book my real flight later on to leave when I want to leave.
The next step is to decide what to do with your house. If you're a renter, then all it is just giving notice to your landlord to say, hey, I'm leaving. If you own your home, then you have to do a little bit of thinking on whether you want a house sitter, whether you have some friends or family who live nearby who can come check on your house, or if it's worth it to rent it out. It might seem easy just to leave your house vacated, but some home insurance companies require someone living there, so check with your home insurance company before you leave. Part of this decision also requires you thinking about what to do with all your stuff. We've been through this process so many times. We've done a lot of moves over the last couple of years, and we planned for a around the world trip last year. We've got it down to 2 backpacks and 1 large suitcase that we store at Josh's parents' house. Lucky for us. But if you have a lot of furniture or if you have a lot of big items that you want to store until you return, we can never unpack this again. Yes! And Josh says he doesn't like suitcases.
I hate suitcases.
It's holding half of your stuff. You have to start doing research on where you might want to store them. Storage can be expensive. One of my favorite things to do was to start listing things on Facebook Marketplace or Craigslist or eBay, just to sell things that we were no longer using, but also to make a little bit more money so that way we could use it for our trip.
Next up, you gotta start thinking about what you're gonna do with your job or your career. Now, for me, I have quit my job 3 different times to take 3 trips around the world, and as a result of that, this idea of leaving a career behind, leaving a life behind, leaving a profitable enterprise, whatever behind, doesn't really scare me all that much. Every other time that I've done it, left my job, traveled for a year, came back, got another job once I got back. And honestly, it's been good for my career. For you might be more attached to your job than maybe I was, and sticking with your job once you get back or trying to have a little bit more consistency in your life might be something that you crave. That's totally cool. I totally understand it. So you might want to go talk to your HR representative at your current job before you leave and ask them a question of, hey, do you guys have any sabbatical policies? Do you have any way that I can leave this job for a couple months, not get paid, and then come back and still have my job when I return? And if you do end up having to quit and they don't have any sabbatical policies or anything like that, it'd probably be best to come up with some sort of plan involving how much money you would need and how many months you're going to need once you get back to find another job. But again, from my experience of leaving my job, traveling for a year, and then coming back and then just getting another job to then save up and quit that job and then go traveling again, doing that over and over, it's been a good thing for my career. I don't think it's as big of a risk as most people will say, but I do think you should definitely have a plan, both with the money and with what you're going to do when you get back.
I don't know that I necessarily feel the same way completely as Josh, because leaving my job was really challenging for me and kind of scary. I had never quit my job before to take a year off. I had never taken a year off. I had never taken more than 2 weeks off before. For those of you that are a little bit nervous, a little bit worried, completely understand that. It's kind of a big deal to leave and travel for a whole year. But I do agree, taking some time to think about what you really hope for. Is it your career? Is it travel? Can you do both? Look for ways that you can do both if that really matters to you. Luckily for both of us, after we quit our jobs, we were both able to do some work in the year at a really hard time. So that was a little bit relieving for me for sure. But it is a big deal. So take some time to think about what you really desire.
So there you go. 2 perspectives on the same thing. I'm much more comfortable with a lot of risk in my life. I think Lisa is not so much. So pick whichever one of those 2 perspectives works best for you and go with that. The next step is, I think, the most important of all of them, and that is to de-junk your life. As in to just start getting rid of stuff that you know you're not going to need and you know you're not going to miss when you're away.
So many cables. All the cables. I don't even know what they're for.
The big one's an HDMI. For example, you're probably not going to miss your tea kettle when you're in Thailand 9 months from now. You're just not going to think about it. You can get another one when you get back. So just start getting rid of stuff as aggressively as you possibly can. Sell things on eBay, sell things on Facebook Marketplace or Craigslist, whatever works best for you. But you can't go having a bunch of things lying around because then you'll have to pay to store them, and that can be expensive. So now's the time, 3 months before your trip, just start getting rid of things that you know you're not going to need when you're gone or when you come back. And honestly, it'll probably be a lot more than you think it is.
If you're thinking about what to do with your house, the next step can be a little bit more challenging. Think about whether you'll have a friend or a relative watch your pets, or whether you'll have someone stay at your house and watch them. We know this part can be extremely tough. We know the feeling so well. Lucky for us, Octavius has such a big family who loves him so much and sometimes fight to have who will cuddle with him the most. Josh has done a round the world trip 3 times already and has reassured me that every single time that he comes back, Octavius remembers him and he's always in good hands. We're gonna miss this little guy.
Okay, next up is to decide on how you're gonna handle the rest of your flights on your round the world trip or on your long trip. Are you gonna book them all in advance, save a couple bucks, or are you gonna try to get a little bit more freedom, flexibility, etc., and just book them as you go along? Now, I'm a big proponent for booking as you go along because I think it buys you more flexibility, and honestly, I don't think that you save that much money using some of these round the world trip booking services. For those of you who are into churning and credit card churning and booking award flights, this buys you even more flexibility. But for those of you planners out there, there are some really good options that I'm going to link down below that will handle booking all of your flights for your entire round the world trip for you in advance. And then you only have one company to work with throughout the entire time. There's a lot of convenience there, but you do lose some flexibility. Okay, next up, let's talk about these things. Credit cards, debit cards, money, how you get access to money while you're traveling. I've gone on a bunch of these trips, and without a doubt, the best debit card and the best bank account that you can have for doing a round the world trip is the Schwab Investor Checking. And the reason for this is because, one, their service is excellent. So if you lose your card, which kind of invariably happens whenever you travel for a really long period of time, they're gonna hook you up, they'll send it overseas, they'll get it to you almost overnight. Sometimes it takes a couple of days depending on where you are, but they'll do that for free. And not only that, but they will reimburse all ATM fees no matter where you are on planet Earth. Now, for those of you familiar with traveling in Southeast Asia or Europe, these ATM fees can add up really fast. And if you can offset those, you can end up saving yourself hundreds, sometimes even thousands of dollars depending on how long of a trip you're on. Some other important things, if you don't end up going to Charles Schwab, is make sure that you get a debit card that is a Visa and it's on the Plus network. And that is how you know that it'll work with pretty much every ATM on planet Earth. Yes, even the ones in Japan that are at the 7-Eleven or Family Marts, the notoriously complicated and difficult ATMs. Now, credit cards. I've got so much to say about credit cards, but honestly, it would probably be easier to just check out that Skillshare course that I was talking about earlier. I talk about that at length with all the best credit card offers available today, etc., etc. But if you're looking for just one best offer to go with right now, the best travel credit card you can get today, if you're just getting started, is the Chase Sapphire Preferred. It has its best ever offer of 100,000 points if you spend $4,000 within the first 3 months. Plus, it has no international fees and has a bunch of other really great benefits for people who are traveling. Oh, and some credit cards also come with lounge access, which is a huge bonus. And another thing, if your credit or debit cards are about to expire, now's the time to lose them and have the company send you some new ones so that way they'll be good for the entirety of your trip.
Whenever we'd go on road trips, my dad would always listen to these really cheesy cassette tapes on how to learn a new language. I remember I used to think it was so embarrassing whenever we'd go to a new restaurant, like a Thai restaurant or a Mexican restaurant, and he'd use what he learned from those tapes to say hello or to order. Now when I think about it, I think it's super useful. When you travel, it can be helpful to just learn a few phrases to get you around. Where's the train? Where's the bathroom? And lucky for us, we don't have to listen to cassette tapes anymore. There are lots of apps out there like Duolingo that we love using.
Vaccinations. Now, besides just the COVID vaccine, which is essentially required for travel anywhere right now, there's a whole host of other vaccines that you're going to need to get depending on where you're going. If you're going to rural Japan, you're going to need to get the Japanese encephalitis or yellow fever vaccine, and there's a whole list of different vaccines that you'll need. And the way you figure all this out is just go to a travel clinic, and you're going to want to do this about 2 months before you leave. Getting an appointment for a travel clinic can oftentimes take longer than you think, and once you actually start getting the vaccines, some of them have multiple rounds. So you'll get one now, one a month later, and then one right before you leave. Make sure that you're up to date on all your vaccinations. 2 months before you leave is the time to start doing it, and go check out a travel clinic. They'll explain everything that you need. You just tell them which countries you're going to. Next up, your phone. It's time to get that thing unlocked. Now, there are a couple different ways to think about keeping your phone number while you're traveling, which for people from the US can be pretty important to do. Especially when it comes to keeping your two-factor authentication on your banking apps and other things like that. You're going to want access to that phone number to be able to get text messages so that way you can move money around and just generally have access to all the stuff that you would have access to back at home. My personal favorite is to just sign up with Google Fi. Google Fi will get you data at $10 per gigabyte anywhere on planet Earth. Now this isn't exactly cheap, but it does allow you to get free calls and free texts to your US-based cell phone number no matter where you are. And the data rates, while they're a bit expensive, are really convenient. You can just show up in a new country, turn on your phone, and bam, you've got data. Now another way to do this that's a bit more budget conscious is you could just take your phone number, transfer it to the service called Google Voice. Google Voice is an internet-only service provider, as in it will only work with your phone and text while you're actively connected to the internet, but it will allow you to sort of park your phone number and still use it for your banking apps and texting, and without having to pay the exorbitant fees that AT&T or T-Mobile or some of the other big carriers will charge you when you're going on a long trip. So what I'd recommend is just park your number at Google Voice and then just keep buying pay-as-you-go SIM cards in every new country that you get to. And to do this, you're going to need an unlocked phone to go back to that first point. So either buy a cheap unlocked phone or just go the easy route, pay a little bit more, and just go with Google Fi everywhere that you go. Now there are some new cheap ways to get data in almost every country, and that's with this new technology called eSIM, where it's not actually a physical SIM card, it's just a SIM built into your phone. It's the future. It's the way everything should work. You can sign up with these. There's a couple of really good companies called Dent and Air Allo, and you can buy data for about $4 to $5 per gigabyte. And then you'll always have data everywhere that you go on planet Earth, and you don't have to keep buying these physical SIM cards whenever you land in a new country. It's nice.
A couple of other things that you may not think about when you're planning your round-the-world trip is what to do with your mail. You may not think about this unless you're moving, but mail forwarding is really important. If you're staying where you're currently living, it could be helpful to have someone check your mail every so often, or you might consider forwarding your mail. If you're in the States, you can use services like the USPS mail forwarding system. You can forward your mail to people that you trust, like your family members or some close friends. You might also want to consider setting up a PO box.
Oh, and just one more quick thing. Make sure that you check your medication and prescriptions right around this time, 2 months before you leave. You're going to want to get a re-up on whatever you need to travel. More often than not, other countries will have the medications that you need, but it'll be really difficult to actually be able to describe to someone in a different language what exactly type of medication you need. So I don't know anything about your health or anything like that, but just make sure that when you leave for the trip that you have enough medications of whatever you're taking before you leave.
One of the things that Josh and I really wanted to make sure before we took off on any trip was to make sure that our registrations to vote were completely up to date. If there's a major election coming up and you want to vote in it, be sure to do some research on how you can get your vote in if it's early or an absentee or mail-in ballot.
Okay, so here we are 1 month before your trip. It's probably starting to feel really exciting and really real at that point. There are just a couple more logistical things that you gotta do. I know this whole video has just been logistics, but there are just a couple more things you gotta take care of. The first one of which is getting some decent travel insurance. Now, there are a couple of companies that offer this, some of which will charge you $400 a month and some of which will charge you like $50 a month, and it's really hard to tell if any of these are actually different from each other. A couple of companies that I can recommend are World Nomads and SafetyWing. Now, SafetyWing is pretty new to this game, and they're honestly a lot easier to work with than World Nomads are. World Nomads has been around forever, and they cover almost every stupid thing you could possibly do on your trip, so they're a great, well-known company that have been used by travelers forever. Both of them are really good for our trip that we have coming up. I think I'm going to go with SafetyWing just because I like their interface and I like their customer service a little bit better.
Next thing up, don't forget to get additional passport photos. These are often needed for entry to many countries where you can apply for the visa at the border. You should probably have one passport photo for every country that you're visiting. And if you don't end up using them, you can pass them out to your friends. They make great gifts.
Speaking of insurance, now's the time to book those last-minute dentist visits, last-minute doctor visits, everything like that. Just go and see all of your service providers one more time before you leave, because honestly, it's going to be a pretty long time before you're back and able to visit a doctor. Just go get a checkup. Now's the time.
A useful thing that you can also apply for is an international driving permit. Now, this is not required for all countries, but it can be helpful to have just in case you are thinking about driving in countries where your driver's license may not be valid. You can apply for this quite easily at any AAA branch, even if you don't have a AAA membership. We got ours for about $20 and about 30 minutes wait time. For these, you also need those lovely passport photos. Speaking of your international driver's license and your passport photos, it can be really helpful to keep a copy of all of your important documents in somewhere secure, as well as bring some paper copies of this information with you. Josh and I keep paper copies of our passports with us as we travel, just in case anything should happen to our original passports. We keep the information from our passports in a secure password manager called 1Password. It can also be helpful to share some of this important documents to some people that you trust, just in case they might need it. Your passports, your driver's license, your health insurance information, any ticket information, and visa information. It can also be helpful to have with you some of your initial documentation or travel information, such as where you're staying the first few nights or any maps or directions that you might need, just in case you don't have cell service. When I first went to Japan, I didn't get my SIM card for another 2 days, so it was helpful for me to download Google Maps in advance and have the information of my hotel written down as well as in my phone.
Okay, here we are, the last couple of days before your trip. Now's the time to go through and cancel all those things that you're definitely not going to need on your long trip. Are you paying for 4 different streaming services? Now would be the time to cancel most to all of them. You're probably not going to have that much time to watch Netflix and Amazon Prime while you're traveling through Cambodia. You should also be canceling that gym membership and just anything else that's a monthly subscription in your life that you know that you're not going to need anymore. Now is also the time to contact your bank and credit cards and let them know that you're going on this long trip, which countries you're going to be going to, so that way when you're actually in those countries, they don't go canceling your debit card the first time you try to use it. There is nothing sadder than landing in a brand new country and not being able to get money out. It feels so bad. For almost every company these days, you can just do this online through their website. It doesn't really take that long. And then you should go to all your credit cards and turn on all of their highest fraud alerts. You're going to be traveling, you're going to be using this credit card in all sorts of different countries. It's time to up that security on your credit card for sure. And then for all bills that you can't turn off, as in stuff you still need, now's the time to automate bill pay for every single one of them, so that way you don't forget while you're away. With the time zones and sometimes even full day differences that you'll experience when you're traveling for this long, it can be really easy to miss a bill. So make sure that you're putting all this stuff on autopilot. And then if it's that time of year, probably get your taxes filed before you head out. You're not really going to be thinking about taxes all that much while you're out and about, so just get it done before you leave. Okay, now is probably the time to let your job employer know that you're gonna leave. This conversation is gonna be a little bit weird because you're not really leaving for any normal reason. Most people leave to go take another job or because they had a big life change or something like that, and you're not leaving necessarily because you're unhappy with your job. You're just leaving because you're gonna go travel the world for a year or something like that. And there will be a mixture of people confused, excited for you, happy for you, jealous, all over the place. And honestly, after having done this a couple times, I think the best way is to just be as direct as possible. Don't beat around the bush. Just go to your manager and just tell them, here's what I'm doing, here's when I'm leaving, and that way they can start making a plan and figuring out what to do, how to get someone into your position. This is when stuff really starts feeling real.
While many of you, including Josh, likes to fly by the seat of their pants, it can be really helpful to book your first few nights of accommodations in the first place that you're going to, just until you get your bearings. Have that information handy. It can make things a lot easier and a lot more comforting to know where you're going to stay the first few nights when you get into a new country. Especially now during COVID and for contact tracing purposes, a lot of countries require that you fill out where you're staying for the first few nights when you arrive in a country.
Okay, now is the time to start laying out all the things that you're going to actually pack and bring with you on the trip, and probably to start picking out which backpack or other suitcasey thing. I can't recommend a suitcase. I mean, backpacks are definitely the best way to do it, but some people like suitcases. I don't know why. And it's time to start laying out all your clothes, all of your electronics, all of everything, and sort of start whittling it down to this final packing list of just the stuff that you're going to bring with you on this trip. And I think that this is a really good time to also just cut out a third of that. I think it's really important to leave extra room in your bag as you're traveling, and not to forget that other countries will sell all of the stuff that you need for your everyday life. So if you forget a t-shirt or some underwear, your toothbrush or whatever, you'll just go buy it at a store like everybody else does who's there. Basically, as long as you have a backpack, a couple of changes of clothes, and your passport, and some way to pay for things, you're gonna be just fine on this trip. Don't leave this step until just a couple of days before. Do it a couple weeks before. It gives you a little bit of room for error, so that way you don't overpack, and that way you're not left wanting on some specific things that you can probably only get in the US. Like good deodorant. They just don't sell good deodorant anywhere else. I don't know why. One more random house pro tip is to make sure that you check all of your fire alarms, fire detectors, things with batteries in it in your house if you're gonna be leaving someone else to stay in your house. You don't want these things just going boop, boop, boop the whole time that you're gone. Just change the batteries in all of your smoke detectors before you leave. Trust me on this, if somebody ends up getting locked out or if nobody's in your place and just your fire alarm is going off incessantly, that person's gonna hate you, and you'll end up having to have someone random that you may or may not trust go into your place to fix this problem. Change all the batteries. It costs like $10. Okay, it's the last few days before your trip. This is the most exciting time. And this is where you're gonna feel like just the last couple days just blow by. As in, it'll go from like 2 weeks left to 1 week left to all of a sudden you're on an airplane.
I'm not ready.
This is where we are right now, in case you couldn't tell. This is the stage of trip planning that we're in today. So a good place to start here is just to let people know where you're going to be for the first couple legs of your trip. Just send emails out to friends, family, let people know your general plan, not just to bring them in on the trip, which is a nice thing to do, but also for safety reasons. That way, if you don't end up posting that picture on Instagram from Rome in a couple days, they know to maybe ask and see, hey, where are you? What's going on? Did something bad happen? They can at least look out for you and check in on you. Now's the part where you actually quit and leave your job.
Bye.
Oh, feels so good. So good. And then pack up everything that you need and then put everything else that you don't in storage or at a loving family member's house. Thanks, Mom and Dad. Have that going away party with everyone that you're not going to see for a while. And at this going away party, probably eat some of that food that you're gonna miss when you're away from home for a while. Just do whatever stuff you're gonna do in your town or with your friends that you know that you're not gonna be able to do while you're gone and you know you're gonna miss. Also, if you need this proof of onward travel that we were talking about before, where you have to show that you're actually leaving the country that you're about to fly into to be allowed into the country in the first place, you could use some of these online booking services that give you a 24-hour window to cancel your flight. And then once you actually get into the country, past immigration and everything like that, then you can just cancel that flight for free and you would still have your proof of onward travel shown to the immigration officer once you arrived. This is a good way to do it. It's a little bit tricky, but you won't actually end up spending any money. So if you wanted to do it this way, now's the time to do it right before you get on your plane.
Make sure to charge all your devices. This is something that I forget on a nightly basis, so this is something that you should do just anytime, really. Josh always complains about my, hygiene,
her battery hygiene. She doesn't really keep her stuff charged, and then she leaves it up to me to charge her stuff for her. Not that I'm bitter about it.
So don't forget to do that, because I do. So that going away party that you have, make sure to use that as an opportunity to clean out your fridge.
And then go on through your house, unplug all the extra electronics that you know you're not going to need since you're going to be gone for so long. You don't want to go wasting electricity, and plus getting like a $150 electricity bill while you're already over spending a bunch of money in Europe, that hurts. That doesn't feel good. Unplug all your stuff you don't need.
Don't forget to check your luggage if you are checking anything on, just to make sure that the weight restrictions apply.
But I think most importantly, the thing that you shouldn't forget to do is to just take some time and enjoy this feeling. This moment right before you're about to do something entirely different with your life. You're gonna go see the world. Enjoy this little moment of build-up. You don't get this feeling very often in life of making a big shift to something that's really, really good. So just make sure that you don't lose sight of how amazing these last couple days are before you leave on this trip.
It's happening.
It is happening.
We're doing it.
Yes.
So that's it. I think, and as much as we are telling this to you, we are telling this to ourselves. So hopefully we got everything in order.
You took care of all the stuff beforehand, and hopefully this video helped you understand all the different things that you got to do before your trip. Now we're gonna go start doing these things that we haven't done yet.
Here we go. No way, you fell too early. That was good. One more time.
Whenever you're ready.
Oh. Travel third.
This is very safe. OSHA approved.
There's so many deer.
That's true. It is difficult to vlog in this house. I mean, there's just those deer are quite distracting, I gotta say. So we're gonna break up this video.
That's yeah.
Maybe just say like, go get your passport or something like that.
Take care of your passport.
And then when it's and
Trip. He's gonna bite me right now, aren't you?
this is Lisa negotiating with Octavius and losing.
The only way that he gets to go outside. Okay.
Just so that we can, so you can practice basics, so you can practice basic, so you can practice.
Okay.
As well as.
This goes before the last thing I just said. The last thing I just said is the last thing.
Oh, you're editing it, right?
What?
What?
I edited the Tuesday one.
So?
Do you remember that?
I edited 150 of them.
Wow, we're gonna be paying for an editor very soon. It's our first thing we're buying as a YouTube channel.
Here we go!
No, not you ready for that yet.
That's it. I don't know if we're ready, but...
Hold on.
Hi, kitty. What do you got to tell us? So many things to say.